Caleb Thornton's hands hadn't stopped shaking since he saw the stage coming through the snow. 3 years. 3 years of silence. 3 years of raising a daughter alone, of burying every feeling so deep he forgot where he put them. Now a woman was coming. A stranger he'd bought with a newspaper advertisement and $40. His 7-year-old Rosie pressed her face against the frozen window. "Papa, I see it. The stage is here." Caleb couldn't move. What had he done, Ted? If you want to know what happens when this broken rancher meets the woman who will change everything, subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The stage pulled up to the Silver Creek Depot at 4:30. Snow was falling hard, turning the world white and mean. Caleb stood back from the other folks' hat pulled low. He hadn't told anyone he was expecting a bride. Hadn't told anyone much of anything in 3 years. Rosie tugged his hand. "Papa, why are you standing so far? We can't see nothing from here." "We can see fine." "No, we can't. Come on." She pulled him forward before he could argue. That was Rosie, 7 years old and already bossier than her mama ever was. The stage door opened. An old man climbed out first, then a drummer with a sample case. Caleb's chest tightened with each passenger. Maybe she didn't come. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe. Then he saw her. A woman stepped down into the snow. Her dress was thin cotton, patched in 4 places with fabric that didn't match. Her shoes were wrapped with cloth at the toes. She carried one carpetbag, small and worn. She looked like she'd walked out of a poorhouse. Caleb's stomach dropped. The woman's eyes scanned the crowd. Dark eyes. Steady. When they found him, and somehow they found him right away, she didn't look away. She walked straight toward him through the falling snow. "Mr. Thornton." Her voice was clear. No trembling. No begging. "I'm Clara Whitmore, your bride." Rosie gasped. "Papa, she's here. She's really here." Before Caleb could speak, his daughter broke free and ran to the stranger. She grabbed Clara's frozen hand with both of hers. "You're so cold. Your fingers are like ice. Papa, feel her fingers. They're like ice." "Rosie." "We gotta get her warm, Papa. She'll catch her death." Clara looked down at the child holding her hand. Something shifted in her face, softened. "You must be Rosie. Your father wrote about you." "He did? What did he say?" "He said you were the best thing in his life." Rosie beamed. "That's true. I am." She tugged Clara's hand. "Come on, our wagon's over there. Papa, don't just stand there. Help with her bag." Caleb grabbed the carpetbag. It weighed almost nothing. Whatever this woman owned, it fit in a bag light as air. He didn't speak the whole ride home. The cabin was warm from the fire Caleb had built that morning. He'd cleaned the place, swept the floors, put fresh linens on the spare bed. Rosie had insisted on picking winter berries for the table, even though there weren't many to find. Now those preparations felt foolish. He'd expected someone different. Someone who looked like she belonged here. Clara stepped inside and stopped. Her eyes moved across the room, the stone fireplace, the rough-hewn table, the single window with its faded curtains. "It's lovely," she said quietly. Caleb snorted. "It ain't much. It's warm. It's solid. It's more than I've had in 6 months." The words hit him somewhere he didn't expect. More than she'd had in 6 months. Rosie pulled Clara toward the fire. "Sit here. This is the best spot. Papa, get her some coffee. She needs coffee. And food. Are you hungry, Miss Clara? We got bread and bacon and—" "Rosie." Caleb's voice came out rough. "Let the woman breathe. She can breathe and eat at the same time, Papa. That's what mouths are for." Clara laughed. The sound was unexpected, warm and real and completely unguarded. "She's got you there, Mr. Thornton." Caleb found himself almost smiling. Almost. "I'll get the coffee." He escaped to the kitchen, his hands still shaking. Behind him, he could hear Rosie chattering. "That's Mama's chair you're sitting in. She used to sit there and do her sewing. She made me this dress, see, it's getting too small now, but I won't let Papa throw it away. It's a beautiful dress, Rosie. Papa wanted to burn it after Mama died. He wanted to burn all her things, but I hid some of them." Caleb's hand froze on the coffee pot. "I hid her brush and her hair ribbons and her favorite cup, the one with the chip. Papa doesn't know I have them." "I think," Clara said slowly, "that your papa knows more than you realize, and I think he's glad you saved them." Silence from Rosie. Then, "You think so?" "I know so." Caleb poured the coffee and stood there a moment, not ready to go back. This woman had been in his home for 5 minutes, and already she was navigating waters he'd avoided for 3 years. When he returned to the main room, Rosie was showing Clara the chipped cup. "This was Mama's favorite. She said broken things are more beautiful 'cause they got stories. Can Miss Clara use it, Papa? I think Mama would want her to." Caleb handed Clara the coffee. Their fingers brushed. He pulled back fast. "Use whatever you need." Clara wrapped both hands around the cup. "Thank you, Rosie, and thank you, Mr. Thornton. I'll take good care of it." She drank. Color started coming back to her cheeks. Caleb tried not to notice how she closed her eyes with the first sip, how her shoulders dropped just a little. "Miss Clara?" "Yes, Rosie." "How come you're wearing that dress?" Caleb's jaw clenched. "Rosie, that ain't polite." "It's all right." Clara set down the cup. Her eyes met Caleb's first, then dropped to Rosie. "Do you want the truth, little one?" "Mama always said truth is better than pretty lies." "Your mama was right." Clara smoothed her patched skirt. "This dress is all I have. I came to your father with nothing but what I'm wearing and what's in that bag." Rosie's forehead wrinkled. "But why?" "Because sometimes life takes everything from you. And when that happens, you got 2 choices. You can lie down and quit, or you can get up and start walking toward something better. So you walked to us." "I did. Across half the country, as a matter of fact." Rosie considered this. Then she nodded firmly. "That was brave. Papa wasn't that brave." Caleb didn't answer. He was looking at Clara differently now, seeing past the rags. "Mr. Thornton." Clara's voice was steady. "I know this isn't what you expected. If you want me to leave, I'll go soon as the weather clears. But I ain't gonna pretend to be something I'm not. You deserve to know exactly who's standing in your home." "And who's that?" "A woman who lost everything but her word. I had means once. Education. Position. My daddy was a merchant in Boston. Respected. When he died, I found out he'd gambled it all away. I sold everything to pay his debts. The house, my mother's jewelry, my piano." Her voice caught on the last word, just for a second. "I kept only my name and my honor, and those Mr. Thornton I will never sell." The fire crackled in the silence. Rosie slipped her hand into Clara's. "I don't care about dresses. You're nice, and you're brave, and you smell like snow. I like you." Clara's composure cracked. Her eyes glistened. "I like you too, little one." Caleb turned away, heading for the door. "I got chores in the barn. Rosie, show Miss Whitmore to the spare room." "But Papa." "I'll be back for supper." He grabbed his coat and escaped into the cold, not caring that the chores could wait, not caring that he was running from a woman who weighed nothing and owned less. He just needed to breathe. Head. The barn was dark and cold. Caleb stood with his hands braced against the workbench, head bowed. 3 months ago, answering that advertisement had seemed practical. Rosie needed a mother. He needed help. Simple transaction. But Clara Whitmore wasn't simple. She was a woman who'd been stripped of everything: money, position, pride, and still stood straight. Still looked him in the eye. Still spoke truth when a lie would have been easier. His wife Sarah would have liked her. The thought came unbidden, and Caleb shoved it away. He stayed in the barn until his fingers went numb, then stayed longer. When he finally returned to the cabin, Night had fallen. Through the window, he could see lamplight and shadows moving inside. He heard something that stopped him cold. Laughter. Rosie's laughter. Bright and free and exactly like Sarah's. When had he last heard that sound? Caleb pushed open the door. Clara and Rosie sat at the table, heads bent over something. Paper. A pencil. "No, see, the rabbit goes this way," Rosie was saying. "Ah, I see. Underneath first, then through the loop." "That's right, you're getting it." They were folding paper, making something together. Clara's fingers moved slowly, following Rosie's directions with patient attention. They looked up when he entered. "Papa, Miss Clara's teaching me to read, and I'm teaching her to make paper animals. We traded. Fair's fair," she said. "Fair's fair," Caleb repeated. Clara stood. "Supper's on the stove. I hope you don't mind. I needed to be useful." "You don't have to. I want to, Mr. Thornton. Whatever else happens, I'll earn my keep every day I'm under this roof." He could have argued. Could have told her she was a guest, that he didn't expect her to work. But her eyes told him not to bother. This wasn't about expectation. This was about pride. "Smells good," he said finally. Rosie grinned. "It's rabbit stew. Miss Clara made it from almost nothing. She said in Boston they called it making magic from air. But really, it's just knowing what spices to use." Supper was quiet. Caleb ate without tasting, watching Clara and Rosie talk like they'd known each other for years. "Miss Clara, do you got any brothers or sisters?" "Had one brother, Thomas. He died in the war." "The big war with the blue and gray soldiers." "That's the one." "Papa was in that war too. He got hurt." Rosie pointed to her arm. "He's got a scar this long. He doesn't like to talk about it." "A lot of men don't." Clara glanced at Caleb. "Some wounds take longer to heal than others." He met her eyes, held them. "Some wounds don't heal at all, Miss Whitmore." "Maybe. Or maybe they just need the right medicine." Rosie yawned, breaking the moment. "I'm sleepy." "Bedtime, little bird." Caleb stood. "Say goodnight to Miss Whitmore." Rosie crossed to Clara and wrapped her arms around the woman's neck. "Good night, Miss Clara. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you're staying." Clara held her tight. "Good night, Rosie. Sleep well." Caleb watched them, something twisted in his chest. "Come on, Rosie." He carried his daughter to bed, listened to her prayers, kissed her forehead. "Papa?" Her voice was drowsy. "Yeah. Don't send her away, please. I know she came in a patched-up dress, and her shoes got holes. But she's good, Papa. I can tell. Mama would have liked her." The words hit him like a kick to the ribs. "Go to sleep, Rosie. Promise me, Papa." He couldn't promise. He didn't know anything anymore. Sleep. He left before she could ask again. Clara was washing dishes when he returned. She'd found an apron somewhere, probably Sarah's old one, and tied it over her patched dress. "She's asleep." "Yeah." "She's a wonderful child, Mr. Thornton. You've raised her well." Caleb poured himself coffee. "Her mama did most of the raising. I just kept her alive." Clara dried a plate, set it aside. "That's more than some fathers manage. It ain't enough. It's everything." She turned to face him. "A child who's loved, who's fed, who's safe, that's not nothing. That's the whole world." Caleb stared at his coffee. "You got an answer for everything, don't you, Miss Whitmore?" "Call me Clara. And no, I got questions same as anyone. I just learned not to let the questions stop me from walking forward." She finished the dishes and dried her hands. The lamp flickered between them. "I know what you're thinking, Mr. Thornton." "Do you now?" "You're thinking you made a mistake. You're wondering what the town will say when they see me. You're calculating whether keeping me is worth the trouble I'll bring." He said nothing. She wasn't wrong. "I'll make you a deal." Clara met his eyes straight. "Give me till spring, 3 months. If by then you still want me gone, I'll leave without argument." Won't cause a fuss, won't demand anything. Just let me prove my worth. And what do you get out of it? A chance. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to show you that a woman's worth ain't measured by the dress she's wearing. The fire popped. Wind rattled the window. I'll be honest with you, Miss Clara. I don't know if I got anything left to give. My wife took most of me when she went. What's left ain't much. I'm not asking for your heart, Mr. Thornton. I'm asking for a roof and a purpose. The rest... She shrugged. The rest we'll figure out or we won't. 3 months. He could manage 3 months. Till spring, he said. We'll see where things stand then. Clara nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This ain't gonna be easy. The town there's a woman named Meredith Ashworth, widow. Thinks she runs the social order round here. She'll come after you the minute she hears about this. I've survived worse than a busybody widow. You ain't met this one. Her tongue's sharper than a skinning knife. Clara almost smiled. Then I'll have to be sharper. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Caleb felt something besides numbness. He didn't know what to call it yet, but it was something. 2 weeks passed. The snow kept falling. Clara rose before dawn every day. Coffee ready, fire stoked, something always cooking on the stove. She cleaned and mended and organized with quiet efficiency, never asking permission, never waiting to be told. Rosie followed her like a shadow. Miss Clara, teach me to make those biscuits again. Miss Clara, will you read me that story tonight? Miss Clara, watch me do a cartwheel. Oh wait, don't watch. I can't do it yet. Caleb watched from the edges. He worked longer hours than necessary, found reasons to be in the barn, maintained his distance. But he couldn't ignore the changes. His daughter was laughing again, talking again, sleeping through the night without screaming for her dead mother. Clara had done that. In 2 weeks, this woman in rags had given his child back something he thought was lost forever. One evening he came in from the barn to find them at the table. Clara was showing Rosie how to write letters, her patient voice guiding each stroke. The R goes like this, see a big belly on the front. Like a fat man. Exactly like a fat man. Now you try. Rosie stuck out her tongue in concentration, pencil gripped tight. She drew a wobbly R and held it up. Look, Papa, I wrote my name Rosie. Miss Clara taught me. Caleb crossed to the table. The letters were crooked, some bigger than others. That's real fine, Rosie. Miss Clara says I'm a quick learner. She says in Boston the rich kids don't learn as fast as me. Clara met his eyes over Rosie's head. It's true. She's bright as a new penny. Mama used to say that. Rosie's voice got quiet. Bright as a new penny. She used to call me that. The silence stretched. Clara put her hand on Rosie's. Then your mama knew exactly what she was talking about. Later, after Rosie was asleep, Caleb found Clara on the porch. She'd wrapped a blanket around her shoulders against the cold, staring out at the frozen landscape. You'll catch your death out here. I like the cold. Clears my head. He stood beside her, not too close. You're good with her. With Rosie. She's easy to love. She ain't been easy since her mama died. Hardly talked for a year. Screamed in her sleep. Wouldn't let anyone touch her. Grief does strange things to children. They don't have words for what they're feeling, so it comes out sideways. How do you know so much about it? Clara was quiet a moment. I was 11 when my mother died. I didn't speak for 3 months. My father thought I'd gone simple in the head, but it wasn't that. I just couldn't find any words that matched what was inside me. What changed? A teacher, Mrs. Harwell. She didn't push, didn't demand, just sat with me every day reading aloud, talking to me, even though I never answered. One day she read a poem about a river that kept flowing even when winter froze the surface. And I started crying. Couldn't stop. Cried for hours. Clara pulled the blanket tighter. After that, the words came back. Slowly. But they came. Caleb thought about Rosie, about the months of silence, about all the things he hadn't known how to fix. You ever think about going back to teaching? Every day. But no school will hire me now. A woman alone with no family, no references left after the debts. I'm damaged goods in their eyes. That ain't right. No, but it's the way things are. She turned to look at him. That's why I'm here, Mr. Thornton. Not because I wanted to marry a stranger, but because it was this or the streets, and I refused to let my father's mistakes put me in the gutter. The moonlight caught her face. She wasn't beautiful in the way Sarah had been, soft and golden and warm. Clara was sharper, stronger, like a blade that had been tested and didn't break. I'm going to bed, she said. Early morning. Yeah. She stopped at the door. Mr. Thornton. Yeah. Thank you. For the chance. She went inside. Caleb stayed on the porch until his fingers went numb, thinking about rivers that flowed under ice and words that hid inside silence, and a woman who'd lost everything but her spine. The third week, everything changed. Caleb rode to Sarah's grave. He hadn't been there since the day they buried her. Couldn't face it. Couldn't look at that wooden cross with her name carved in it and feel anything except the desire to put his fist through something. But today, he went. The snow had drifted high around the marker. He had to brush it away to read the letters. Sarah Thornton, beloved wife and mother, 1854 to 1880. I don't know what I'm doing, Sarah. His voice cracked in the cold air. She came here with nothing. Nothing but a patched dress and a bag that weighs less than Rosie's lunch pail. The whole town's gonna laugh at me. Meredith Ashworth is gonna have a field day. The wind answered. Nothing else. But Rosie, God, Sarah, you should see her. She's talking again, laughing. She looks at Clara like... He stopped, breathed hard. She looks at Clara the way she used to look at you. A crow cawed somewhere in the distance. Is that wrong? To let someone else take your place? I don't know the rules anymore. I don't know nothing anymore. He stayed until his knees went numb from kneeling in the snow. No answers came. They never did. But when he rode back to the cabin, something had shifted. Some weight he'd been carrying felt lighter. Not gone. Just less. That night, Rosie got sick. It started with a cough at supper. Just a small thing. But Caleb's blood went cold. Sarah's illness had started the same way. A cough, a flush. Then 3 weeks of fever, and nothing he did made any difference. By midnight, Rosie was burning up. Papa, her small voice was thin. Papa, I don't feel good. Caleb pressed his hand to her forehead. Too hot, way too hot. I'm writing for Doc Cooper. He grabbed his coat hands, shaking. Keep her warm, keep her... Caleb. Clara's voice cut through his panic. Stop! He spun. She's burning up. I gotta get the doc. Listen to me. Clara crossed to him, grabbed his arms. The pass is snowed in. You saw it yourself yesterday. You ride out there tonight, you'll die in a drift. And then who'll Rosie have? But she's... I know. Clara's grip tightened. But this is a fever. Children get fevers. I've seen dozens of them. Sarah had a fever. Sarah... This isn't Sarah. The words hit him like a slap. Clara's eyes held his. I need you to hear me. This is not the same. Your daughter has a winter cold. Her lungs are clear. Her breathing is strong. She needs rest and cool cloths and someone to watch her through the night. How do you know? How can you be sure? I can't be sure of anything, but I know the difference between sick and dying. And your daughter ain't dying. Not tonight. Not if we do this right. Caleb's chest heaved. Every instinct screamed at him to ride, to do something, to not stand helpless, while another person he loved slipped away. But Clara didn't look away, didn't flinch. Trust me, she said. Just for tonight. If she's worse by dawn, we'll find a way to get help. But right now she needs her papa here. not frozen in a snowdrift somewhere. Rosie coughed from the bedroom, a weak rattling sound. Please, Caleb, trust me. He didn't trust anyone, hadn't in years, but those eyes. One night, he said roughly. If she's worse by morning, you have my word. Clara released his arms and moved to the bedroom. Caleb followed, feeling useless, feeling terrified. Rosie lay in bed, face flushed, eyes glassy. Papa, I'm here, little bird. I feel yucky. I know, but Miss Clara's going to take care of you. She's going to make you better. Clara was already wringing out a cloth in cool water. She pressed it to Rosie's forehead, gentle and sure. There now, little one. That'll help. Will you stay with me? All night, I promise. Rosie's small hand found Clara's and held tight. I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. But being scared is all right. I'm right here. Your papa's right here. We ain't going anywhere. Caleb watched from the doorway. His daughter clutched this stranger's hand like a lifeline, like Clara was the only solid thing in a world gone tilting. I'll get more water, he mumbled, in case you need it. He fled to the kitchen because if he stayed another second, he was going to break. The night stretched forever. Clara worked without stopping. Cool cloths, sips of water, soft words when Rosie whimpered. She moved with calm efficiency, like she'd done this 100 times before. Maybe she had. Caleb paced, fetched water, stoked the fire, anything to keep his hands busy while his mind spiraled. Memories came in waves. Sarah's fever, the way she'd burned for weeks while he watched helpless, the doctor's grim face, the morning he'd woken to find her cold beside him. She's not getting worse. He looked up. Clara stood in the doorway, exhaustion lining her face. Fever's the same. Maybe a little less. She's sleeping now. You sure? I'm sure. Caleb slumped into a chair, head in his hands. I can't do this again. I can't watch another. You won't have to. Clara sat across from him. Under the lamplight, she looked as wrecked as he felt. I know what you're remembering, she said quietly. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. Losing someone you love, there's no pain like it. How would you know? I watched my mother die. Took 3 months. Consumption. I was 11 years old, and I sat by her bed every night because I was afraid if I left, she'd go without me. Caleb lifted his head. She waited till I fell asleep. Clara's voice was matter-of-fact, but her hands twisted in her lap. Couldn't bear to have me watch her go, so she waited, and I woke up holding her hand, and she was already cold. The fire crackled. Neither of them spoke. Rosie's gonna be fine, Clara finally said. I know it in my bones. But even if I'm wrong, even if the worst happens, you won't face it alone. Not anymore. She stood and returned to Rosie's room. Caleb sat in the silence, feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He wasn't sure what to call it, but it felt like a door opening. Just a crack. Just enough to let in the smallest sliver of light. By dawn, Rosie's fever broke. Caleb found Clara asleep in the chair beside his daughter's bed, her head resting on folded arms, dark circles under her eyes, her patched dress wrinkled and worn. She'd stayed up all night for a child who wasn't hers. Rosie's breathing was even and deep, normal. The flush had faded from her cheeks. Caleb backed out of the room quiet as he could. He went to the kitchen and started making coffee. When Clara emerged an hour later, there was a cup waiting for her, and beside it on the rough wooden table, a small carved flower. 5 petals. A curved stem. Simple but careful. Clara picked it up, turned it over in her hands. Caleb stood at the stove, back to her. It ain't much. Just something to say. He stopped. Couldn't find the words. Thank you, Clara finished. It says thank you. Yeah. She set the flower down gently. It's beautiful. It ain't. My hands are out of practice. It's beautiful, she said again. Because you made it. Because it means something. Rosie's voice drifted from the bedroom. Miss Clara Papa. Coming, little bird. Clara picked up her coffee and headed for the door. She paused beside Caleb, close enough that he could smell the smoke from the fire in her hair. You're a good man, Caleb Thornton. Whatever you think about yourself, whatever you've told yourself for 3 years, you're a good man. She left. Caleb stood at the stove, heart pounding, thinking about carved flowers and broken cups, and a woman who came with nothing and gave everything. He was in trouble. He knew it now. The only question was what he was going to do about it. Rosie recovered fast. By the 3rd day, she was out of bed and demanding biscuits. By the 5th day, she was back to her old self, chattering non-stop and following Clara around like a duckling. Caleb watched it all from his careful distance. The carved flower had disappeared from the kitchen table. He found it later on Clara's windowsill catching the winter light. Neither of them mentioned it. But something had shifted between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. A week after Rosie's fever broke, Samuel McAllister came calling again. Caleb heard the wagon before he saw it. He was in the barn mending a bridle that didn't really need mending when the crunch of wheels on snow brought him to the door. Sam climbed down slow the way old men do when their bones ache from cold. He didn't head for the cabin. He walked straight to the barn. Thornton. Sam. You gonna invite me in, or we gonna freeze out here like a couple of fence posts? Caleb stepped aside. Sam entered the barn stamping snow from his boots. Heard about the little one getting sick. She all right? She's fine. Clara took care of her. Clara, is it? Sam's eyes crinkled. Not Miss Whitmore no more. Caleb's jaw tightened. What do you want, Sam? Came to warn you. The old man settled onto a hay bale, groaning. Widow Ashworth's been talking, and when that woman talks, the whole territory listens. Let her talk. It ain't that simple, and you know it. Sam fixed him with a look. She's been telling folks your bride came off the stage looking like a beggar. Says you've taken in a woman of questionable character. Says she's planning to pay you a visit soon as the road's clear. Caleb's hands curled into fists. Clara's got more character than that whole pack of gossips put together. I know that. You know that. But them ladies don't care about truth. They care about appearances. Sam leaned forward. What's your plan, son? You gonna marry this woman or not? I told her till spring. We'd see how things stood. Spring's a long way off, and Meredith Ashworth ain't gonna wait that long to cause trouble. Sam shook his head. Your daddy would have known what to do. He never did care what folks thought. My daddy's dead. Yeah, he is. But the lessons he taught you ain't. Sam stood, bones creaking. That woman in there, Clara, she's the real deal. I seen it the minute I met her. Question is, are you gonna let a bunch of clucking hens run her off, or are you gonna stand up like the man your daddy raised? He didn't wait for an answer, just walked out of the barn, climbed into his wagon and drove away. Caleb stood in the cold, Sam's words ringing in his ears. Are you gonna stand up like the man your daddy raised? He didn't know anymore. He wasn't sure he'd ever known. That evening, Clara was teaching Rosie to knit. They sat by the fireheads, bent together, needles clicking. Rosie's tongue stuck out in concentration. No, see, you dropped a stitch there. We gotta go back. But I don't want to go back. Going back is boring. Going back is how you fix mistakes, little one. Everybody makes them. The trick is catching them before they get too big. Caleb stood in the doorway, watching. Clara's patience seemed endless. Every mistake Rosie made, Clara corrected with gentle hands and kind words. Miss Clara. Yes, Rosie. Did you ever make a really big mistake? One you couldn't fix? Clara's hand stilled on the needles. Yes, I trusted someone who didn't deserve it. Who? My father. I thought he was a good man. Turns out he was just good at pretending. Rosie's forehead wrinkled. That's sad. It is. But you know what I learned? What? That people show you who they really are through their actions, not their words. Your papa, for instance. He don't say much, but everything he does says he loves you more than life itself. Rosie looked over at Caleb. He pretended to be examining his boots. Papa, did you hear that Miss Clara says you love me more than life itself? I heard it. Is it true? He looked up. Rosie's eyes were bright with hope. Clara's were steady, waiting. Yeah, little bird, it's true. Rosie beamed. See, Miss Clara, I told you he could say nice things when he tries. Clara laughed, that warm, unexpected sound that always caught Caleb off guard. You were right, Rosie. You know your papa better than anyone. Caleb retreated to the kitchen before they could see his face. His chest felt tight. Something was happening to him, something he couldn't control, and it scared him more than any storm. 2 days later, the roads cleared enough for travel. Caleb knew what was coming before he saw the carriage. Widow Ashworth traveled in style, a black buggy with brass fittings pulled by 2 matching grays. The whole territory knew that carriage. He was splitting wood when it appeared at the end of the road. His axe froze mid-swing. Clara emerged from the cabin, drying her hands on her apron. She'd heard it too. That her? Clara asked. The widow. Yeah. She always traveled like she's going to a funeral. Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. Pretty much. The carriage pulled up. A driver jumped down to open the door, and Meredith Ashworth descended like a queen, gracing peasants with her presence. She was a handsome woman, Caleb had to admit. 52 years old, silver hair perfectly arranged, dressed in black silk that cost more than most folks earned in a year. Her late husband had owned the largest ranch in the territory before a horse threw him 6 years back. Since then, Meredith had appointed herself the moral guardian of Silver Creek. Caleb Thornton. Her voice was honey over vinegar. How wonderful to see you. Mrs. Ashworth. Her eyes slid to Clara, traveled slowly from the patched dress to the worn shoes to the work-roughened hands. And this must be your bride. The pause before bride said everything. Clara stepped forward. Clara Whitmore, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure it is. Meredith's smile didn't reach her eyes. I've heard so much about you, Miss Whitmore. The whole town has, in fact. Good things, I hope. That depends on one's definition of good. Meredith turned to Caleb. I thought I'd pay a neighborly visit. See how you're getting on. Such a shame about the circumstances of Miss Whitmore's arrival. There's no shame in honest poverty, Mrs. Ashworth. Clara's voice was steady, but Caleb heard the steel underneath. Meredith's eyebrows rose. Honest poverty. What a quaint phrase. Tell me, Miss Whitmore, what exactly happened to your family's fortune? I've heard such interesting stories. I'm sure you have. People do love to talk. They certainly do, especially about young women who travel halfway across the country to marry strangers. One has to wonder what drives such desperation. Caleb stepped forward. That's enough, Mrs. Ashworth. I'm merely expressing concern, Caleb, for you and for dear little Rosie. Your wife, your first wife, was from such a respectable family. It must be difficult adjusting to reduced circumstances. The cabin door banged open. Rosie came running out, braids flying. Miss Clara, I finished my row all by myself and... She skidded to a stop seeing the visitor. Oh, hello. Meredith's expression transformed into something resembling warmth. Rosie, darling, how you've grown. Come give Mrs. Ashworth a kiss. Rosie didn't move. No, thank you, ma'am. The warmth vanished. I beg your pardon? Papa says I don't gotta kiss nobody I don't want to. And I don't want to. Caleb bit the inside of his cheek to keep from laughing. Clara's hand rose to cover her mouth. Well, Meredith's voice could have frozen the sun. I see manners have declined along with everything else around here. My daughter's got fine manners, Mrs. Ashworth. She just knows her own mind. Clearly. Meredith gathered her skirts. I can see my visit was premature. Perhaps when Miss Whitmore has had time to settle in and acquire suitable clothing, we can try again. She swept back to her carriage without another word. The driver helped her in, and they were gone in a cloud of snow and wounded pride. Silence held for a long moment. Then Rosie tugged Clara's hand. Miss Clara, who was that mean lady? Nobody important, little one. She looked at you like you smelled bad. But you don't smell bad. You smell like bread and soap and nice things. Clara knelt down and hugged her tight. Thank you, Rosie. That's the sweetest thing anyone's ever said to me. Caleb watched them, his daughter fierce and loyal. This woman who'd stood her ground against the most powerful gossip in the territory without flinching. She'll be back, he said, and next time she'll bring reinforcements. Clara looked up. I know. You still want to stay, knowing what's coming? She stood Rosie's hand still in hers. Mr. Thornton, I've been looked down on by experts. That woman's got nothing on the society ladies of Boston. Her chin lifted. Let her come. Let them all come. I ain't running. Something swelled in Caleb's chest. Pride, maybe, or something more. All right, then. We'll face them together. The word hung in the air between them. Together. Clara's eyes softened. Together. Rosie looked back and forth between them. Does this mean Miss Clara's staying forever? It means, Caleb said slowly, that we're gonna find out. The next Sunday, Caleb made a decision. Get dressed, he told Clara at breakfast. We're going to church. She stared at him. Church. The whole town'll be there. If we're gonna face them, might as well do it all at once. Caleb, I don't have... She gestured at her patched dress. I can't walk into church looking like this. Why not? Because they'll what? Talk. They're already talking. They'll judge. They're already judging. He set down his coffee cup. You told me a woman's worth ain't measured by the dress she's wearing. You believe that or not? Clara's jaw tightened. I believe it. Then prove it. Walk in there with your head high. Let them see exactly who you are. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly she nodded. All right, Caleb Thornton. Let's give them something to talk about. The ride to town felt endless. Rosie sat between them, chattering about nothing, oblivious to the tension. Clara's hands were folded in her lap, knuckles white. Caleb kept his eyes on the road. The church was already half full when they arrived. Heads turned. Whispers started. Caleb helped Clara down from the wagon. She took his arm the first time she'd done so, and together they walked toward the doors. He could feel the stairs like physical weight, could hear the murmurs rising and falling. Just keep walking, he said quietly. I am. You're doing fine. I know. They entered the church. More heads turned. More whispers. Caleb led them to the pew he'd always shared with Sarah. It had sat empty for 3 years. Now he guided Clara into it, Rosie between them. The whispers crescendoed, then fell silent, as Reverend Thomas Gray took the pulpit. Caleb didn't hear a word of the sermon. He was too aware of Clara beside him, her straight spine, her steady breathing, the way she held her hymnal with quiet dignity, despite the eyes boring into her back. After the service, the gauntlet began. Meredith Ashworth was first, of course. She swept over with her flock of followers, a parade of silken judgment. Caleb, Miss Whitmore, how brave of you to join us. We're members of this community, Mrs. Ashworth. Where else would we be on Sunday? Indeed. Her eyes raked over Clara's dress. I see you haven't had time to visit the dressmaker yet. Such a shame. We were all so looking forward to seeing what style you might bring from Boston. Clara smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Fashion was never my priority, ma'am. I always believed what's inside a person matters more than what's on the outside. How philosophical? My mother used to say that clothes make the man, but character makes the woman. Perhaps you've heard something similar. Meredith's smile froze. Around her, the other women exchanged glances. Before she could respond, Sam McAllister pushed through the crowd. "Miss Clara." He tipped his hat. "Mighty fine to see you here. And Rosie looking healthy as a spring colt. That fever all cleared up." "Yes, sir." Rosie bounced on her heels. "Miss Clara took care of me. She stayed up all night and put cold cloths on my head and sang me songs." "Did she now?" Sam turned to the assembled crowd. "A woman who nurses a sick child through the night. That's the mark of a good heart, I'd say. Wouldn't you agree, Mrs. Ashworth?" Meredith's lips pressed thin. "Indeed. In fact," Sam continued, his voice carrying clearly, "I've known many fine ladies in my time, women with fancy dresses and fancy manners, but I ain't never seen one who'd sacrifice a night's sleep for a child that wasn't her own." He looked at Clara. "You done good, miss. Real good." Other voices joined in. Mr. Thompson, the blacksmith. Mrs. Chen, whose husband ran the laundry. The Hendersons from the neighboring farm. "Heard she cooks like an angel. My wife says she's been teaching the little one to read. Takes real grace to come so far with so little." The tide was turning. Caleb watched Meredith's face tighten as her allies wavered. "Well," Meredith gathered her dignity, "I'm sure we're all delighted that Miss Whitmore is settling in, though one does wonder how long such enthusiasm will last." She swept away her followers, trailing behind like confused ducklings. The crowd dispersed. Clara let out a breath she'd been holding. "That went better than expected." "It ain't over." Caleb guided her toward the wagon. "She won't give up that easy." "I know, but today—" Clara looked back at the church, at the people nodding to her as they passed. "Today, we didn't lose." Rosie tugged Caleb's hand. "Papa, why was that mean lady so mad?" "Because some people don't like when things change, little bird." "But Miss Clara's a good change, right?" He looked at Clara, at her patched dress and her proud chin and her steady eyes. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She's a good change." The ride home was different, lighter somehow. Rosie fell asleep against Clara's shoulder, and neither adult moved to disturb her. "Thank you," Clara said. "For what?" "For standing by me. You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did." "Why?" He thought about the question, thought about Sarah's grave and Sam's words, and the carved flower on Clara's windowsill. "Because you earned it. Every day you've been here, you've earned it." She was quiet for a long moment. "I wasn't sure you noticed." "I notice everything." The words hung between them. Clara turned to look at him, and Caleb felt something shift in his chest. "Caleb, don't." His voice was rough. "Don't say nothing yet. I ain't ready." "All right. But when I am—" He took a breath. "When I am, I'll let you know." She nodded and turned back to the road, but her shoulders stayed touching his warm despite the cold, and neither of them moved away. The days that followed took on a new rhythm. Caleb found himself coming in from the barn earlier, finding excuses to be in the cabin, watching Clara and Rosie together. He started carving again, really carving, not just scraps. A little bird for Rosie, a comb for Clara's hair. Things he left on the table without explanation that disappeared into their possession without comment. One evening Rosie was asleep, and Clara was mending by the fire. Caleb sat across from her, pretending to read a week-old newspaper. "Can I ask you something?" Clara didn't look up from her needle. "Go ahead." "What was she like, Sarah?" Caleb's chest tightened. "Why do you want to know?" "Because she's part of this family. Because Rosie mentions her every day. Because you've got her photograph hidden in your drawer, and her cup on the shelf, and her grave on the hill." Clara finally looked up. "I'm not trying to replace her, but I'd like to understand. He set down the newspaper, stared at the fire. She was soft, gentle, everything I ain't. The words came slow rusty from disuse. She used to sing while she worked, made up songs about nothing, the chickens, the weather, whatever Rosie did that day. Drove me crazy sometimes. House was never quiet. You miss that. I miss everything. He rubbed his face. But mostly I miss who I was when she was alive. I was better then, kinder. I laughed more. You're still that man, Caleb. You've just forgotten where you put him. Maybe. He looked at her. Maybe you're helping me remember. Clara's breath caught, her needle stilled. Caleb. The door burst open. Cold wind and snow swirled in. A figure stumbled through. A boy couldn't be more than 13, gasping for breath. Mr. Thornton, you gotta come quick. There's been an accident. Caleb was on his feet. What happened? The Patterson wagon went off the ridge. Mrs. Patterson's trapped. Mr. Patterson's hurt bad. My pa sent me to get help. Clara was already moving, grabbing blankets and supplies. How far? 3 miles, maybe. By the old mill. Caleb grabbed his coat. Stay with Rosie. Don't let the fire go out. Caleb, wait. Clara thrust a bundle into his arms. Bandages roped the whiskey he kept for emergencies. Be careful. Always am. He rode hard through the snow, the boy clinging behind him. His mind raced with what he might find. The Pattersons were good people, young couple, just starting out. If they died. He pushed the thought away. Focused on the horse, the snow, the 3 miles that felt like 30. When he arrived, others were already there. Men from neighboring farms working by lantern light. The wagon had slid off an icy bend and tumbled down a ravine. Mrs. Patterson was pinned under the wreckage, unconscious, but breathing. Mr. Patterson sat against a tree, his leg twisted at a wrong angle, refusing to leave his wife. Thornton. Old Henderson waved him over. We need more hands. The wagon's too heavy. Caleb joined the men. Together they heaved and strained. Slowly, impossibly, the wreckage shifted. Someone pulled Mrs. Patterson free. Hours passed in a blur of effort and cold. They stabilized Mr. Patterson's leg, loaded both injured folks into a wagon, sent them to Doc Cooper. It was nearly dawn when Caleb finally rode home. He expected to find the cabin dark, Clara asleep, Rosie peaceful. Instead, every lamp was burning. Clara stood on the porch wrapped in a blanket watching the road. You waited up. Of course I did. She hurried down the steps. Are they alive? Both of them. Doc says they'll pull through. Clara's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. Come inside. You must be frozen solid. He followed her in. Coffee was hot. Food was warm. The fire blazed. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. Sit down before you fall down. He sat. She put a cup in his hands. Rosie. Slept through everything. That child could sleep through cannon fire. Despite everything, the cold, the exhaustion, the night's terror, Caleb smiled. She gets that from her mama. Sarah could sleep through anything too. Clara sat across from him. Tell me what happened. So he told her. The ravine. The trapped woman. The husband who wouldn't leave her side. The hours of work in the freezing dark. You saved them, Clara said when he finished. Wasn't just me. Took all of us. But you went. The moment you heard you went. That's the kind of man you are. What kind is that? The kind who shows up. When things go bad, when people need help, you show up. She leaned forward. That's rare, Caleb. Rarer than you know. He looked at her, this woman who'd come to him with nothing, who'd faced down gossips and nursed his daughter, and waded through a frozen night just to make sure he came home safe. You show up too, he said. Every day. For Rosie, for this place. You show up. Something passed between them. Understanding. Recognition. We make a good team, Clara said softly. Yeah, we do. The fire crackled. Outside, the first gray light of dawn crept across the snow. Clara. Yes. That thing I said, about not being ready. He set down his cup, looked at her straight. I think maybe I'm getting there. Her breath caught. Caleb. Not yet, not quite, but soon. He stood suddenly, needing to move. Just don't give up on me. I won't. Even when I make it hard, even when I push you away. Clara rose, crossed to him, took his rough, cold hand in both of hers. I came here with nothing, Caleb Thornton. No money, no prospects, just hope and stubbornness. You think I'd give up now, when I finally found something worth fighting for? He stared at their joined hands, felt the warmth of her fingers around his frozen ones. I ain't worth fighting for. That's where you're wrong. That's where you've been wrong for 3 years. She squeezed his hand. But I'm patient. I'll wait until you see what I see. And what's that? A man worth loving. The words hit him like a physical blow. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. Clara released his hand. Get some sleep. You've earned it. She disappeared into her room. Caleb stood alone in the kitchen, the sun rising outside, feeling something he'd thought died with Sarah. Hope. Fragile as winter ice, but real and growing. 3 weeks passed. February crept in cold and unforgiving. Caleb found himself watching Clara more than he should. The way she moved through the cabin like she'd always belonged there. The way she laughed at Rosie's jokes. The way she caught him looking and didn't look away. He wasn't ready to say the words, but they were building inside him, pressing against his ribs like something alive. One morning, Rosie woke with a question that stopped both adults cold. Papa, when are you and Miss Clara getting married? Caleb choked on his coffee. Clara's spoon clattered against her bowl. What makes you ask that, little bird? Because she lives here, and she takes care of us, and you look at her the way Mr. Henderson looks at Mrs. Henderson. Tommy Henderson says that's what love looks like. Tommy Henderson is 8 years old. So he's got eyes. Rosie crossed her arms. Are you gonna marry her or not? Caleb glanced at Clara. Her cheeks had gone pink, but she met his gaze steadily. That's a grown-up decision, Rosie. But you're a grown-up, so decide. Clara laughed, breaking the tension. She's got you there, Caleb. She's got too much of her mama's mouth is what she's got. Rosie grinned. Mama always said I was the smartest person in this house. Smarter than you even. Your mama was biased. What's biased mean? It means she loved you too much to see your flaws. I don't have flaws. I'm perfect. Rosie grabbed a biscuit and headed for the door. I'm gonna go feed the chickens. You two can talk about getting married while I'm gone. The door banged shut behind her. Silence filled the kitchen. Caleb stared at his coffee. Clara stared at hers. Kids, Caleb finally muttered. She's not wrong, though. He looked up. Clara's expression was serious now. About the looking, she clarified. You do look at me, and I look at you. We've been dancing around it for weeks. Clara. I'm not pushing. I told you I'd wait and I meant it, but Rosie's gonna keep asking. The town's gonna keep talking. At some point we need to figure out what this is. Caleb set down his cup. What do you want it to be? I asked you first. That ain't fair. Life ain't fair. You taught me that. She leaned forward. What do you want, Caleb? Not what's practical, not what makes sense. What do you want? The question hung between them. Caleb felt it pressing against his chest. What did he want? He wanted to stop feeling like half a person. He wanted Rosie to have a mother who'd stay. He wanted to wake up without dreading the empty pillow beside him. He wanted Clara. But wanting something and deserving it were two different things. I want... His voice cracked. He tried again. I want to stop being afraid. Clara's eyes softened. Afraid of what? Of losing someone again. Of letting you in and then watching you leave. Of Rosie getting attached and then... He couldn't finish. Caleb? Clara reached across the table and took his hand. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. Nobody can promise that. Sarah didn't plan to die. She didn't wake up that morning thinking, you're right, I can't promise I won't die, but I can promise I won't leave. Not by choice, not ever. Her grip tightened. I came here with nothing but my word. That word is all I have, and I'm giving it to you. He stared at their joined hands. Her fingers were warm against his calloused skin. I don't know how to do this anymore, he admitted. I don't know how to be a husband. I forgot. Then we'll figure it out together. Ain't that what you said? We face things together. Yeah, I said that. Did you mean it? He looked up, met her eyes, saw everything he'd been afraid to see, hope, patience, something that might be love. Yeah, he said quietly. I meant it. Clara smiled, not the careful smile she wore around town, a real one, bright and unguarded. Then that's enough for now. The moment was broken by Rosie's voice from outside. Papa, the chickens got out again. I need help. Clara laughed. Duty calls. Always does. But Caleb didn't let go of her hand. Not right away. He held it for one more moment, feeling the warmth memorizing the weight. Then he went to catch chickens. But something had changed between them. Something had finally been said, and there was no going back. The trouble came 3 days later. Caleb was in town picking up supplies. Sam had held back some flour and sugar for him, knowing the winter had been hard on everyone's stores. Thanks, Sam. I owe you. Just bring that bride of yours around more often. Brightens up the place. Caleb almost smiled. I'll do that. He was loading the wagon when he heard the voices. Women's voices carrying from the general store's back porch. Saw her myself, wearing that same patched dress she arrived in. 3 months and not one new thing to her name. I heard she was a teacher in Boston. If that's true, I'm the Queen of England. Meredith says there's more to the story. Something about her father's debts. Gambling, can you imagine? Caleb's blood went cold. He recognized the voices. Mrs. Crawford, Mrs. Porter, Meredith Ashworth's closest allies. The real question is what she's doing out there with Caleb Thornton, a woman alone with a widower for 3 months. It ain't proper. Proper? It's scandalous is what it is. Poor little Rosie exposed to that kind of influence. Someone should do something, for the child's sake. Meredith's working on it. She's got a plan, she says. Going to have a talk with Reverend Gray. About time. That woman needs to go back where she came from. Caleb's hands clenched on the flour sack. He wanted to march around that corner and give those women a piece of his mind. But he knew how that would end. Small towns had long memories. Whatever he said would be twisted, repeated, exaggerated. He loaded the wagon in silence and drove home with fury burning in his chest. Clara knew something was wrong the moment he walked in. What happened? Nothing. Caleb. He set down the supplies harder than necessary. I heard them talking. In town. The Crawford woman and Mrs. Porter. Clara's face went still. What did they say? Does it matter? Same poison they've been spreading since you got here. It matters to me. He turned to face her. They said you're not proper, that you're a bad influence on Rosie, that someone should do something about it. Clara's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed even. And what did you do? Nothing. What could I do? Start a brawl in front of Sam's store. You could have defended me. He stopped. She was right. He could have. He should have. I didn't want to make it worse. Worse for who? For me or for you? The question hit him like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're still worried about what they think. 3 months of me proving myself and you're still afraid of the gossip. That ain't true. Isn't it? Clara's voice rose. You hold my hand when we're alone. You look at me like I mean something. But out there, in town, you barely stand next to me. I stood next to you at church. Once, 3 weeks ago, and you've found reasons to go to town alone ever since. Her eyes were bright with anger. Or tears, maybe both. I ain't asking you to fight everyone who whispers about me, but I am asking you to stop hiding. Stop being ashamed. I ain't ashamed of you. Then prove it. The words hung in the air. Caleb felt his own anger rising, mixing with guilt. You don't know what it's like, he said. You can leave, go back east, start over somewhere nobody knows you. I'm stuck here. This is my land, my home, my daughter's home. I can't just stand up for the woman living under your roof, the woman raising your daughter, the woman you said you wanted to stop being afraid with. She turned away, arms wrapped around herself. Maybe I was wrong, she said quietly. Maybe spring should come sooner. The words punched through him. Clara, I think I need some air. She grabbed her shawl and walked out. The door closed softly behind her, which was somehow worse than a slam. Caleb stood in the empty kitchen, Sam's words echoing in his head. Are you going to stand up like the man your daddy raised? He wasn't. He was hiding behind practicality, behind caution, behind 3 years of walls he'd built to keep from hurting again. And in doing so, he was hurting the one person who'd stood by him through everything. He grabbed his coat and followed her. Clara was by Sarah's grave. Caleb found her there standing in the snow, her thin shawl pulled tight against the cold. She'd never been to the grave before. He'd never brought her. She turned when she heard his boots crunching on the snow. I hope you don't mind. I needed to see it. I don't mind. He stood beside her looking down at the wooden cross. Sarah's name. The dates. The frozen ground. She was beautiful, wasn't she? How do you know? Rosie shows me the photograph sometimes. When you're not looking. Clara's voice was soft. She tells me about her. How she smelled like lavender. How she sang in the mornings. How she made everything better just by being there. Caleb's throat tightened. She did. She made everything better. I'm not trying to replace her, Caleb. I never was. I know. Do you? Clara turned to face him. Her eyes were red, but no tears fell. Because sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I think you look at me and see everything she wasn't. Everything I can't be. That ain't true. Then what is true? Because I'm standing here in the cold, 3 months into a life I didn't plan, loving a man who can't decide if he wants me or not. The word hit him like lightning. Loving. You love me. Of course I do, you stubborn fool. Why do you think I'm still here? Why do you think I care what those women say? Her voice cracked. I could handle the whispers if you stood beside me. But you're still got 1 foot out the door, Caleb, still ready to run. I ain't running. Then what do you call this? What do you call 3 months of almost and maybes? What do you call coming home angry about gossip, but never once saying out loud what I am to you? You're... He stopped. The words tangled in his throat. I'm what your housekeeper, your daughter's nursemaid, your mail-order bride, who ain't quite good enough to be a real wife. Stop it. Why? It's the truth, isn't it? That's what this has been. A trial. A test. See if the poor girl from Boston can measure up to the perfect dead wife. I said stop it. He grabbed her arms, forcing her to look at him. Sarah wasn't perfect. Our marriage wasn't perfect, and I ain't been testing you. Then what have you been doing? I've been scared. The words tore out of him. I've been terrified every single day since you walked through that door. Because you're everything I didn't expect, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to love someone without waiting for them to leave. Clara went still in his grip. She didn't leave by choice, she said softly. Sarah didn't choose to die. I know, but it felt like leaving. It felt like... His voice broke. I woke up one morning, and she was cold. And I've been cold ever since. 3 years of cold. And then you came and you started thawing me out, and it hurts, Clara. Coming back to life hurts. Tears were streaming down her face now. Caleb, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to care what the town thinks or what Meredith Ashworth says or what anyone says. He pulled her closer. I just want to stop being cold. Clara's hands came up to his face. Her fingers were freezing, but her touch burned. Then let me warm you, she whispered. Let me in. All the way in. Stop holding back. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've been doing it for weeks. You just need to stop being afraid of it. He stared at her. At this woman who'd come to him in rags and given him everything. Who'd loved his daughter. Who'd stood her ground against the whole damn town. Who'd walked out to his dead wife's grave and demanded he choose. Okay, he said. Okay what? Okay, I choose you. Here, now, in front of Sarah and God and anyone else who's watching. He pressed his forehead to hers. I choose you, Clara Whitmore. Not because I have to, because I want to, because I can't imagine this place without you anymore. Clara let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. About time, Caleb Thornton. I know, I'm slow. It's a flaw. I can work with flaws. You'll have to. She laughed again, and this time it was pure joy. He pulled her against his chest and held on, feeling her warmth seep into his bones. Behind them, the sun was setting over Sarah's grave. The snow glowed orange and pink. Caleb didn't know if his first wife could see them. Didn't know if there was anything after death but cold ground and fading memories. But in that moment, holding Clara, he could almost feel Sarah's blessing. Go, her voice seemed to whisper. Be happy. Live. So he did. They walked back to the cabin hand in hand. Rosie was waiting on the porch, her small face worried. Papa, Miss Clara. Why were you standing in the snow so long? Are you fighting? Caleb looked at Clara. She looked at him. They both smiled. No, little bird, we ain't fighting. Then what were you doing? Deciding something. Deciding what? Caleb knelt down, so he was eye level with his daughter. Remember when you asked if I was going to marry Miss Clara? Rosie's eyes went wide. Yeah. Well, I reckon the answer is yes, if she'll have me, and if you'll have her. For a moment, Rosie didn't move. Then she screamed a sound of pure, unbridled joy and launched herself at Clara. Really, 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 you're going to be my mama. I mean my new mama. I mean... She pulled back, suddenly uncertain. Is it okay if I call you mama? Or is that bad because of my first mama? Clara knelt down, gathering Rosie's hands in hers. You can call me whatever feels right, little one, and your first mama will always be your mama. Nothing changes that. So I get 2 mamas. If you want. I want. Rosie threw her arms around Clara's neck. I want. Caleb watched them. His daughter. His fiancée. The word felt strange in his mind, but good. When's the wedding? Rosie demanded. Can I wear my good dress? Can we have cake? Real cake, not biscuits with jam. Slow down, little bird. We gotta do things proper. Talk to Reverend Gray. Make arrangements. But soon, right? Promise me soon. Caleb looked at Clara over Rosie's head. Soon as Clara's ready. I'm ready now, Clara said. Been ready since Christmas, if I'm being honest. Then soon, real soon, Rosie cheered. She grabbed both their hands and dragged them inside, chattering about flowers and cake, and inviting Tommy Henderson so she could tell him she'd been right about everything. The cabin was warm, the fire crackled, and for the first time in 3 years, Caleb Thornton felt like he was home. But the town wasn't done with them yet. The next morning, a letter arrived. Caleb was in the barn when he heard the horse. He came out to find a young man, the Henderson boy, Tommy's older brother, holding an envelope. "From Reverend Gray, sir. He said it was urgent." Caleb took the letter. His stomach dropped before he even opened it. Inside, the Reverend's careful handwriting spelled out the problem. "Dear Mr. Thornton, it has come to my attention that certain members of the congregation have raised concerns about the living arrangements at your homestead, specifically regarding Miss Clara Whitmore's presence in your home without the benefit of marriage. I do not share these concerns personally. However, Mrs. Ashworth has requested a formal inquiry. She claims to have evidence of impropriety and intends to present it to the church council this Sunday. I wanted to warn you. Whatever you're planning, I suggest you plan it quickly. With respect, Reverend Thomas Gray." Caleb read the letter twice. Then he crumpled it in his fist. Clara appeared at the barn door. "What is it?" He handed her the crumpled paper, watched her face as she read it. "Evidence of impropriety," she repeated. "What evidence? I've been nothing but proper." "Doesn't matter. Meredith Ashworth can make evidence out of thin air." "So what do we do?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "We get married. Tomorrow. Before Sunday. Before she can do whatever she's planning. Tomorrow. Unless you want to wait and let that woman destroy your reputation." Clara's chin lifted. "I don't care about my reputation. I care about it. And I care about you. And I'm done letting fear run my life." He took her hands. "Marry me, Clara. Tomorrow. Let's give them nothing to talk about except how wrong they were." She stared at him. Then slowly she smiled. "All right, Caleb Thornton. Let's get married." He kissed her. Right there in the barn in the cold morning light, with hay dust floating in the air, and horses watching from their stalls. Their first kiss. Long overdue, perfect anyway. When they finally broke apart, Clara laughed. "I've been waiting 3 months for that. Sorry it took so long. You can make it up to me, starting tomorrow. I intend to, every day for the rest of my life." They walked back to the cabin together, ready to tell Rosie the good news. Tomorrow. They would be married tomorrow. And Meredith Ashworth could choke on her evidence. The ride to town felt different this time. Caleb held the reins with steady hands. Clara sat beside him, Rosie wedged between them, practically vibrating with excitement. "Are we really doing this, Papa, today, right now? Right now, little bird? And Miss Clara's gonna be my mama after—" "That's how marriage works, yes." Rosie grabbed Clara's hand. "I told Tommy Henderson this would happen. He said I was dreaming. Wait till he sees." Clara laughed, but Caleb noticed the tension in her shoulders. He noticed it because he felt it too. They weren't just getting married. They were racing a clock they couldn't see. Reverend Gray was waiting at the church. He must have seen them coming because he stood on the steps, Bible in hand, a look of relief on his weathered face. "Thornton, Miss Whitmore, I got your message." Caleb had sent the Henderson boy ahead at dawn. No time for proper invitations or announcements. "Can you do it?" Caleb asked. "Today, now." "I can. But you should know Meredith Ashworth is already in town. She saw me preparing the church this morning. Asked what the occasion was." Clara's hand tightened on Caleb's arm. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. But she's not a fool. She'll figure it out." Gray looked between them. "You sure you want to do this? Once it's done, there's no taking it back." "I've never been more sure of anything." The Reverend's face softened. "Then let's not waste time. Come inside." The church was empty. Just the 4 of them, Caleb, Clara, Rosie, and the Reverend. No flowers, no music, no guests. It was perfect. They stood at the altar. Rosie positioned herself between them, holding both their hands. "Dearly beloved," Gray began, "we are gathered here." The church doors slammed open. Meredith Ashworth stood in the entrance, her black dress billowing, her face twisted with fury. Behind her, a cluster of women crowded the doorway. Mrs. Crawford, Mrs. Porter, half a dozen others. "Stop this ceremony immediately." Reverend Gray's jaw tightened. Mrs. Ashworth, you are interrupting a sacred— I am preventing a scandal. She swept down the aisle, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. This woman is not who she claims to be. Caleb stepped in front of Clara. You got no right to be here. I have every right. As a founding member of this church, as a pillar of this community, I have a duty to protect it from undesirable elements. Meredith's eyes fixed on Clara. Tell them, Miss Whitmore. Tell them what you really are. Clara's voice was steady. I've never hidden anything. Haven't you? Meredith pulled a folded paper from her sleeve. I've been corresponding with some acquaintances in Boston. Imagine my surprise when I learned the truth about your father's debts. I told everyone about my father's debts the day I arrived. You told them he gambled. You didn't tell them what he gambled on. Meredith's smile was cruel. Your father didn't just lose money, Miss Whitmore. He lost other people's money. He ran a scheme, took investments from honest families and gambled it all away. When he died, a dozen families were ruined. Murmurs from the women at the door. Clara's face went pale. That's not— I didn't know. Didn't you? You were his daughter, his educated, sophisticated daughter, and you expect us to believe you knew nothing. I didn't. Clara's voice cracked. I swear to God I didn't know until after he died, until the lawyers came. How convenient. The debts appear and suddenly you're an innocent victim. Meredith turned to the congregation. This woman comes from a family of thieves. Her father destroyed lives, and now she's wormed her way into the home of one of our most respected citizens, preying on a grieving widower and his innocent child. That's enough. Caleb's voice cut through the church like a blade. Is it— Perhaps you'd like to explain why you're so eager to marry this woman, Caleb. A woman you've known for 3 months. A woman with no references, no family, nothing but a carpetbag and a sad story. I'm eager to marry her because she's worth 10 of you. The words rang through the silent church. Meredith's eyes narrowed. You're blinded by— I'm blinded by nothing. I've spent 3 months watching this woman, watching her care for my daughter, watching her work from dawn to dark without complaint, watching her face down gossip and judgment and cruelty with her head held high. Caleb stepped toward Meredith. She took a step back. You want to know what I see when I look at her? I see a woman who lost everything through no fault of her own, who could have lied, could have pretended, could have shown up in borrowed finery and hidden her past. Instead, she came to me in rags, told me the truth. Let me decide for myself. Pretty words, but they don't change the facts. The facts are simple. Her father was a cheat. She paid his debts anyway, every penny, sold everything she had to make right what he did wrong. Caleb's voice rose. That ain't the action of a thief. That's the action of someone with more honor than you'll ever understand. Meredith's face flushed. You're making a fool of yourself. Maybe, but I'd rather be a fool for the right reasons than a coward for the wrong ones. He turned back to Clara. She was trembling, tears streaming down her face. Clara. She wouldn't look at him. You heard what she said. About my father. About the families he ruined. I heard. Maybe she's right. Maybe I should have— Look at me. She raised her eyes. They were red, broken, full of shame. Do you love me, Caleb? Do you love me? Yes. God help me, yes. Do you love my daughter? More than my own life. Then that's all I need to know. He took her hands. I don't care what your father did. I don't care what your name meant in Boston. I care about who you are, right here, right now, and who you are is the woman I want to spend my life with. Clara's breath caught. Behind them, Rosie was crying quietly. Caleb turned to Reverend Gray. Finish it. Gray looked at Meredith, at the women in the doorway, at the couple before him. Mrs. Ashworth, I'm going to ask you to leave. You can't— I can. This is my church. These are my parishioners. And what I see before me is two people who love each other trying to build a life together. He straightened his shoulders. Whatever sins Clara Whitmore's father committed, they are not her sins. And I will not condemn an innocent woman for the crimes of a dead man. Meredith's face went purple. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Sam McAllister's voice came from the doorway. He pushed through the crowd of women, his weathered face set with determination. It's over, Meredith. You've had your say. Now let these folks get married in peace. Samuel McAllister, you have no authority. I got the authority of a man who's lived in this town for 60 years. Who remembers when your husband was just a ranch hand with dirt under his nails? Who remembers when you were Meredith Cooper from the wrong side of the creek without 2 pennies to rub together? Meredith's face drained of color. We all got pasts, Meredith. Every one of us. But most of us have the grace not to throw stones. Sam tipped his hat to Clara. Miss Whitmore, I'd be honored to stand as witness to your wedding. If you'll have me. Clara wiped her eyes. I'd like that, Mr. McAllister. Sam. Just Sam. More voices from the doorway. Mr. Thompson, the blacksmith, pushed forward. I'll stand witness too. And me. Mrs. Chen, her small frame straight and proud. Count us in. The Hendersons, both of them with young Tommy bringing up the rear. One by one, people stepped forward. Not everyone, some stayed with Meredith. Some slipped away, but enough. Enough to fill the front pews. Enough to drown out the whispers with support. Meredith stood alone in the aisle, her allies deserting her. This isn't over, she said again, but her voice had lost its power. Yes, it is. Caleb didn't look at her. Goodbye, Mrs. Ashworth. She turned and walked out. The doors closed behind her with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. Silence fell. Then Rosie's voice, small but clear. Can we get married now, please? Laughter rippled through the church. The tension broke like ice in spring. Reverend Gray smiled. I believe we can. He began again. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Caleb Thornton and Clara Whitmore. Marriage is not entered into lightly. It is a bond forged in love, tested by hardship, and strengthened by faith. Clara's hands were steady in Caleb's now. Her eyes were still red, but something else lived in them. Hope, gratitude, love. Do you, Caleb Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. The words came easy, easier than he expected. And do you, Clara Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have, and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Clara's voice broke, but the words were clear. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Gray's eyes crinkled. You may kiss your bride. Caleb pulled Clara close. The kiss was gentle this time, a promise, a beginning. Rosie threw herself at them both, wrapping her arms around their legs. We're a family. We're a real family. The church erupted in applause. Sam whooped loud enough to rattle the windows. Tommy Henderson pounded on the pews. Caleb held his wife and his daughter, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt whole. The celebration moved to Sam's store. Someone produced a fiddle. Someone else brought out a jug of cider. Before Caleb knew it, half the town was crowded into the general store, dancing and laughing and slapping him on the back. Congratulations, Thornton. About time you found some happiness. That wife of yours is something special. Don't mess it up. Clara was surrounded by women, different women than before. Mrs. Chen, Mrs. Henderson. The Patterson woman recovered from her accident, leaning on a cane, but smiling. Welcome to Silver Creek properly. If you ever need anything, anything at all. That dress of yours, I've got some fabric at home that would look beautiful on you. Caleb watched his wife accept their kindness with grace. She'd been through hell today, dragged through the mud by Meredith Ashworth, forced to relive her father's shame in front of everyone, and she was still standing, still smiling, still reaching out to the people who'd stood by her. He'd married a remarkable woman. "Papa," Rosie tugged his hand. "Tommy says he knew all along we were going to be a family. I told him he did not. He's just trying to take credit." "Let him. We know the truth." "But it's not fair." "Rosie." Caleb knelt down. "Today's not about fair. Today's about happy. Are you happy?" Her whole face lit up. "The happiest ever." "Then that's what matters." She threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Papa." "Love you too, little bird." "And I love Mama Clara." Mama Clara. The words hit him somewhere deep. "She loves you too, more than you know." Late in the afternoon, the celebration wound down. People drifted home to do chores, tend animals, start supper. The ordinary rhythms of life that didn't stop for weddings. Caleb, Clara, and Rosie rode home in the wagon. Rosie was asleep within minutes, her head on Clara's lap. "Someday," Clara said quietly. "Someday. I'm sorry. About what Meredith said. About my father." "Don't." But she was right. He did hurt people. And I spent months paying off debts without ever really knowing what he'd done with the money. I just assumed. You assumed he was a good man. Because he was your father. That ain't a crime. It feels like one. Caleb reached over and took her hand. "You know what I think. I think your father's choices are his own. They died with him. What you did after paying back every penny, sacrificing everything to make it right, that's who you are. That's what matters." Clara's eyes glistened. "How do you always know what to say?" "I don't. Most of the time, I'm just fumbling in the dark." He squeezed her hand. "But with you, somehow the words come out right." They rode in silence for a while. The sun was setting, painting the snow gold and pink. "Caleb." "Yeah. Thank you for standing up for me, in front of everyone." "Didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice." He thought about that. About the man he'd been 3 months ago, closed off, bitter, ready to send her away at the first sign of trouble. "I guess I finally made the right one." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. Rosie stirred in her lap, but didn't wake. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" "Yeah, Clara, we're going to be just fine." The cabin appeared ahead. Home. They're home now. Caleb helped Clara down from the wagon, then lifted Rosie, still sleeping, into his arms. He carried her inside and laid her in her bed. Clara tucked the blankets around her, smoothing her hair. "She's exhausted." It was a big day. The biggest. Clara looked up at him. "For all of us." They stood there in their daughter's room, watching her sleep. The fire crackled in the main room. Outside, the last light faded from the sky. "Wife," Caleb said softly, testing the word. "Husband," Clara answered. He pulled her close, held her against his chest, felt her heartbeat match his own. "I thought this was over for me. Love, family, all of it. I thought I used up my chance. Turns out you were wrong. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things." Clara tilted her head up. "Like what?" "Like mail-order brides. Like women in patched dresses. Like second chances." He kissed her forehead. "Mostly about myself. About what I was capable of feeling again." "And what are you capable of?" "Everything. With you. I'm capable of everything." She kissed him then. Really kissed him. Not gentle this time. Not tentative. The kind of kiss that made promises words couldn't keep. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "We should," Clara started. "Yeah, we should." But neither of them moved. "Caleb Thornton." Clara's voice was low, half laughing. Are you nervous? Terrified. Good, me too. That's supposed to make me feel better. It means we're in this together. Whatever comes next, we figure it out together. He looked at her, his wife, the woman who came to him with nothing and gave him everything. Together, he agreed. They walked into their future hand in hand. The next morning, Caleb woke before dawn. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then he felt the warmth beside him, saw Clara's dark hair spread across the pillow, remembered, married. He was married again. He slipped out of bed, quietly, pulled on his clothes, and went to start the coffee. Old habits, the kind that didn't change just because your life did. The cabin was quiet. Rosie wouldn't be up for another hour. Clara was still sleeping. Caleb stood at the window watching the sun rise over the snow. Pink and gold, beautiful in a way he'd stopped noticing years ago. He noticed now. Footsteps behind him, small arms wrapped around his waist. "Good morning, husband." He turned. Clara stood there wrapped in a blanket, her hair tangled, her eyes soft with sleep. "Good morning, wife." That sounds strange. Good strange. Give it time. It'll feel normal. I don't want it to feel normal. I want it to feel like this forever. New and wonderful and a little bit terrifying. He laughed. You're going to be disappointed then. Marriage gets pretty ordinary after a while. Promise? What? Promise it'll get ordinary. Promise we'll have years and years of ordinary. Her voice caught. I've had enough extraordinary for one lifetime. I just want ordinary now. Ordinary mornings and ordinary suppers and ordinary arguments about whose turn it is to feed the chickens. Caleb pulled her close. I promise. All the ordinary you can handle. Good. They stood together watching the sunrise wrapped in warmth and silence. The door to Rosie's room creaked open. Papa, Mama. Clara's breath caught at the word. Mama. We're here, little bird. Rosie padded across the floor in her nightgown, rubbing her eyes. Is it real yesterday? Are we really a family now? Really and truly. She threw herself at them, and they caught her together, a tangle of arms and laughter and joy. This is the best day ever, Rosie declared. Even better than yesterday. Because yesterday I was nervous. Today I'm just happy. Just happy, Clara repeated. I like the sound of that. Caleb held his family. His complete, imperfect, beautiful family. Outside, the snow was melting, just a little, just at the edges. Spring was coming, and with it, a new beginning. The following Sunday, they went to church as a family. Caleb walked in with Clara on his arm, Rosie holding her other hand. 3 where there had been 2. Whole where there had been broken. Meredith Ashworth was there. She sat in her usual pew, surrounded by her usual circle. But something had changed. The women around her seemed fewer, less certain. When Caleb met her eyes, she looked away first. Victory, quiet and complete. Reverend Gray preached about forgiveness, about second chances, about the power of community to lift up those who had fallen. Caleb didn't know if the sermon was meant for them, didn't care. He held Clara's hand through the whole service, felt Rosie leaning against his side, listened to his wife's voice join the hymns. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd expected. Something better. After the service, people stopped to congratulate them, to welcome Clara properly, to tell Caleb they were happy for him. Even some of Meredith's former allies approached. Mrs. Thornton, Mrs. Crawford's voice was stiff but genuine. I want to apologize for what I said before. I was wrong. Clara's grace was immediate. Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. I appreciate that. My mother always said, judge not lest ye be judged. I should have remembered that. We all forget sometimes. What matters is remembering again. Mrs. Crawford nodded and moved on. Clara watched her go with something like wonder. She apologized. People surprise you sometimes. I didn't expect... That's the thing about grace, Clara. It grows. You give a little, you get a little back. Pretty soon you've got more than you started with. She looked at him. When did you get so wise? Married a smart woman, bound to rub off eventually. She laughed. That warm, bright sound he'd come to treasure. Come on, she said. Let's take our daughter home. Our daughter. Our home. The words fit perfectly. Spring came slow to Montana. First, the icicles started dripping. Then the snow pulled back from the fence posts. Then one morning, Caleb walked out to the barn and heard something he hadn't heard in months. Birds. Singing in the bare trees like they'd never left. He stood in the doorway, coffee in hand, listening. Behind him, Clara was making breakfast. Rosie was chattering about something, a dream, a story, one of her endless questions about everything. 3 months married. Sometimes it felt like 3 years. Sometimes it felt like 3 days. Papa? Rosie appeared at his elbow. Mama says breakfast is ready and you're letting all the warm air out. Mama. The word still hit him every time. Coming little bird. He closed the door and joined his family at the table. Clara set down a plate of eggs and biscuits. She moved differently now. More settled, like she finally believed this was real. Snow's melting, Caleb said. I noticed. The creek's running again. I could hear it this morning. Means spring work's coming. Fences to mend, calves to birth, garden to plant. I've never planted a garden before. You'll learn. Rosie can help. She used to follow her mama around the vegetable patch like a little shadow. Rosie looked up. I remember. Mama let me water the carrots. I always gave them too much, and she said I was drowning them. It was the first time in weeks Rosie had mentioned Sarah without sadness. Just memory. Just love. Clara reached over and squeezed her hand. You can show me the right amount. I'll need a good teacher. I'm the best teacher. Papa says so. Papa's right. Caleb watched them, his daughter and his wife, the two people who made his world make sense. After breakfast, he said, I thought we might take a ride, all 3 of us, see how the land's looking. Rosie's face lit up. Really, all 3? If your mama's willing. Clara smiled. I'm willing. They rode out after the dishes were done. Caleb took them along the property line, pointing out landmarks. The old oak where he'd carved his initials as a boy. The creek where Sarah used to catch fish. The hill where his parents were buried next to the spot he'd chosen for himself and Sarah. Clara looked at the graves but said nothing, just squeezed his hand. Someday I'll tell you about them, Caleb said. My folks, they would have liked you. I'd like to hear about them. Papa's daddy was a tough old coot, Rosie announced. That's what Mr. Sam says. He says Grandpa could outstubborn a mule and outwork an ox. Sounds like someone else I know. Who? Your Papa. Rosie giggled. Papa's not a coot. He's just grumpy sometimes. I'm sitting right here, Caleb muttered. We know. Clara's eyes sparkled. We're just choosing to ignore that. They crested the ridge above the homestead. From here, you could see everything. The cabin, the barn, the fenced pastures, the winding road that led to town. Caleb pulled up and sat for a moment looking down at the life he'd built. I used to come up here after Sarah died, he said quietly. Used to sit for hours, trying to figure out why I should keep going. Clara's hand found his. I never found a good answer, just kept going anyway, for Rosie, for the work, for something I couldn't name. And now, he looked at her, at his daughter, at the home waiting below. Now I got reasons, more than I know what to do with. Rosie pointed at something. Papa, look, by the cabin. What's that? Caleb followed her finger. Near the front door, a splash of color broke through the melting snow, purple and gold. Crocuses, Clara breathed. They rode down for a closer look. Sure enough, flowers were pushing up through the frozen ground, small, brave, impossibly alive. Rosie jumped off the horse before Caleb could stop her. She knelt in the mud, staring at the blooms. "They're Mama's flowers. My first Mama. She planted them the year I was born." Rosie's voice was hushed. "Papa, they came back." Caleb's throat tightened. He'd forgotten about those crocuses. Sarah had planted them to mark Rosie's birth purple for royalty. She'd said gold for joy. After she died, he'd stopped noticing them. "They come back every year, little bird. They never really left." Rosie looked up at Clara. "Do you think my first Mama sent them? Like a present?" Clara knelt beside her. I think love doesn't disappear just because someone's gone. It finds ways to show up. In flowers. In memories. In people who carry it forward. Like you carry it forward. Like all of us do. Together." Rosie threw her arms around Clara. "I love you, Mama." "I love you too, Rosie. So much." Caleb watched them, his daughter and his wife, kneeling in the mud among Sarah's flowers, and felt something he'd forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of pain. Not the erasure of grief. Just peace. Knowing that life kept moving. That love kept growing. That endings were also beginnings. He helped them both up and led them inside. Home. The weeks that followed were full of work. Caleb mended fences from dawn to noon. Clara started seeds in boxes on the windowsill. Rosie ran between them, helping with everything getting in the way, making both of them laugh. They fell into rhythms. Morning coffee together. Midday meals in the cabin. Evenings by the fire. Rosie reading aloud from her primer, while Clara mended and Caleb carved. He was carving again. Really carving. Not just little flowers and birds, but bigger things. A rocking horse for Rosie's birthday. A jewelry box for Clara. Things that took time. Things that mattered. One evening Clara watched him work. "You're good at that." "Used to be. Getting back to it." "What else did you make before?" He thought about it. Furniture mostly. Tables, chairs. Made Rosie's cradle. Made the bed. Sarah and I. He stopped. "The bed we sleep in." "Yeah." Clara was quiet for a moment. "That doesn't bother me. You know that, right?" "I know. She was part of your life. A big part. I'm not trying to erase that." "I know that too." She came and sat beside him, watching his hands move over the wood. "What are you making now?" "Cradle." Her breath caught. "Caleb." "Not saying it's time. Just saying. When it is time. I want to be ready." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know if you'd want more children." He set down the knife. "Clara, I want everything. With you. Whatever that looks like. However it comes." She leaned into him. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "We got time," he said. "Plenty of time. No rush." "I love you, Caleb Thornton." "Love you too, Clara Thornton." The name still sounded new. Still sounded right. Rosie's voice drifted from her room. "Are you two being mushy again?" "Go to sleep, little bird." "I can't sleep if you're being mushy. It's distracting." Clara laughed. "Your daughter is impossible." "Our daughter," Caleb corrected. "Our daughter is impossible. Always has been. Always will be." He kissed Clara's forehead and went back to his carving. The fire crackled, the night deepened, and the cradle took shape under his hands, one careful stroke at a time. April brought Rosie's birthday. She woke before dawn, bouncing on her parents' bed. "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! I'm 7. I'm officially 7. Caleb groaned. "Officially 7 means officially old enough to let your parents sleep." "No, it doesn't. Mama tell him it doesn't." Clara laughed into her pillow. "She's got you there." They got up. There was no fighting it. Breakfast was special. Clara had made honey cakes, the first Rosie had tasted since Sarah died. The little girl's eyes went wide at the first bite. "This is exactly like Mama's. My first Mama's. How did you—" I asked Mr. Sam. He remembered the recipe Mrs. Thornton used, wrote it down for me. Rosie's lip trembled. You did that for me. For you, always for you. The tears came, then happy ones, the kind that washed clean instead of cutting deep. Rosie cried and laughed and ate 3 honey cakes in a row. After breakfast, Caleb brought out the rocking horse. It was simple, but solid smooth pine, hand-carved mane, leather reins. He'd spent weeks on it working late after Clara and Rosie went to bed. Papa, Rosie's voice was hushed. You made this every piece. It's beautiful. Well, climb on, see if it works. She did. The horse rocked smoothly, its runners gliding on the wooden floor. Rosie's face transformed with joy. I'm gonna name him Dusty, after the horse in that story Mama reads me. Dusty's a good name. Papa? Rosie stopped rocking. This is the best birthday ever. Even better than when my first mama, was alive. Is that bad to say? Caleb knelt beside her. That ain't bad, little bird. Your first mama would want you to be happy. She'd want all of us to be happy. You think she knows about Mama Clara and everything? I think she knows, and I think she's glad. Rosie nodded seriously. I think so too. She went back to rocking, humming a song Clara had taught her. Caleb stood and found Clara watching from the doorway. You're a good father, she said quietly. Getting better. Got help now. We help each other. That's the point, ain't it? That's what family means. She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. They stood together watching their daughter rock on her new horse, humming in the morning light. Caleb. Yeah, I'm happy, really happy. I didn't know I could be this happy. Me neither, but here we are. Here we are. She kissed him. He kissed her back. Mushy, Rosie yelled without looking up. You're being mushy again. Deal with it, Caleb called back. You're stuck with us. Forever. Forever. Rosie grinned. Good. May brought the warmth in earnest. The garden went in rows of carrots and beans and tomatoes, just like Sarah used to grow. Clara worked the soil with determination, learning as she went. Rosie helped mostly by eating the seeds before they could be planted. Rosie Thornton, if you eat one more bean, I swear. But they're good, Mama. They taste like green. They're supposed to grow into more beans. That's how food works. But then there's waiting. I don't like waiting. Caleb chuckled from his spot by the fence. She's got a point. Waiting's hard. Don't encourage her. Wouldn't dream of it. But he was smiling. They all were. The days got longer. The work got easier. The rhythm of the homestead became as natural as breathing. One evening, Caleb took Clara to Sarah's grave. It had been months since he'd been there, not avoiding it, just not needing it the way he used to. I want you to know her, he said, as much as you can. Clara looked at the wooden cross, the letters worn by weather. Tell me. So he did. He told her about meeting Sarah at a church social when they were both 17, about how she'd laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny, about proposing by the creek with a ring made of twisted wire because he couldn't afford real gold. He told her about the hard years when the crops failed and the cattle got sick and they survived on stubbornness and prayer. About the good years when the land finally gave back what they'd put into it. About Rosie's birth, how Sarah had laughed and cried at the same time, holding their daughter like she'd discovered treasure. He told her about the sickness, the fever that wouldn't break. The night Sarah had squeezed his hand and whispered, "Take care of our girl." He told her about the morning he woke up to cold sheets and a silence that would last 3 years. When he finished, Clara was crying. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For sharing her with me. For letting me know the woman who made you who you are. She'd like you. I told you that before. But standing here, I know it's true. She'd like you a whole lot." Clara looked at the grave. "Sarah Thornton, I promise I'll take care of them. your husband and your daughter. I'll love them like they deserve to be loved, and I'll never try to replace you. There's room for both of us. Love's not a competition." The wind stirred. The grass swayed. Caleb could almost feel Sarah there, listening, approving. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." They walked down the hill together, hand in hand. Behind them, Sarah's crocuses were spreading, purple and gold, just like she'd planted them, growing stronger every year. Summer arrived with heat and hard work and happiness. The Patterson family stopped by to thank Caleb again for the rescue. Their baby was due soon, a new life born from the night Caleb had ridden through the storm. "We want you to be godfather," Mr. Patterson said. "You and Mrs. Thornton, if you're willing." Clara's hand found Caleb's. "We'd be honored. The baby's coming in July. You'll be at the christening. We'll be there." After they left, Clara sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Godparents," she said. "I never thought. People trust us. That's what that means. It's more than that. It's community, belonging." She shook her head. "6 months ago, I was on a stage with nothing but a carpet bag. Now I'm being asked to stand up for someone's child. That's how it works out here. You show up for people, they show up for you. In Boston, it wasn't like that. Everyone was too busy protecting themselves. Frontier's different. Can't survive alone. Got to lean on each other." Clara leaned against him. "I like it. This life. More than I expected to. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They make the good parts mean something." Rosie burst through the door. "Mama, Papa, I caught a frog. Come see." They went to see. The frog escaped. Rosie chased it around the yard laughing. Clara caught it eventually and released it by the creek. Ordinary moments. Ordinary joy. Exactly what Clara had asked for. By August, they had news of their own. Clara told him on a quiet morning before Rosie was awake. She'd been sick for a few days, nothing serious, she'd said. Just tired. But now she stood in the kitchen, hands pressed to her stomach, eyes bright with something between fear and wonder. "Caleb, I think I'm almost sure." He knew before she said it, knew it in his bones. A baby. A baby. He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "Say something," Clara whispered. "Please." He crossed to her in 2 strides and lifted her off the ground, spinning her around the small kitchen. "Caleb put me down. The baby. The baby's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine." He set her down gently, keeping his hands on her waist. "A baby, Clara. We're having a baby. Are you happy?" Happy ain't a big enough word. She laughed, tears streaming down her face. "I was so scared to tell you. I didn't know if I wanted more children after Rosie." He cupped her face in his hands. "I want everything with you, Clara. I told you that. I meant it. But another baby. Another person to love. Another person who could what? Could leave, could get sick, could break our hearts." He kissed her forehead. "That's the risk of loving anyone. You taught me that. 3 months ago, I was too scared to even try. Now look at me. I'm looking. What do you see?" She smiled through her tears. "A man worth loving." "Damn right." He kissed her, deep and long and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, a small voice came from the hallway. "I knew you were being mushy again." Rosie stood in her nightgown, arms crossed, trying to look stern and failing completely. "Come here, little bird. We got something to tell you." She patted over. "What?" Clara knelt down. "How would you feel about being a big sister?" Rosie's eyes went wide. "A baby. We're having a baby. We're having a baby." The scream of joy probably woke half the territory. The baby came in early spring when the crocuses were blooming and the world was waking up. A boy. Strong lungs. His father's stubborn chin. His mother's dark eyes. They named him Thomas, after Clara's brother, who'd died in the war. Tommy for short. Rosie held him like he was made of glass. "He's so small, Mama." "Was I this small?" "Smaller, probably. You came early." "I couldn't wait. That's what Papa says. I couldn't wait to meet the world." That sounds about right. Caleb stood in the doorway watching his family. His wife exhausted, but radiant. His daughter transformed into a big sister overnight. His son brand new and already loved beyond measure. "Caleb." Clara's voice was tired but happy. "Come hold your boy." He crossed the room and took Tommy from Rosie. The baby was warm and solid in his arms, squinting up at him with unfocused eyes. "Hey there, little man. Welcome to the family." Tommy made a noise that might have been agreement. "He likes you, Papa," Rosie announced. "How can you tell?" He stopped crying. He was crying before when Mrs. Henderson was holding him. Now he's not. That means he likes you best. Or he's just tired of crying. Same thing. Caleb laughed. He couldn't help it. Everything was too good, too full, too much like a life he'd stopped believing was possible. Clara reached for his hand. "We did good, Caleb." "We did. Are you happy?" He looked at her. At Rosie. At the baby in his arms. At the home they'd built together piece by piece from the ruins of grief and the hope of something better. "I'm happier than I deserve." Nobody deserves happiness. That's not how it works. You just choose it, every day, over and over. When'd you get so wise? Married a stubborn rancher, bound to rub off eventually. He leaned down and kissed her. Rosie made a gagging noise. Tommy stayed silent, content in his father's arms. Outside, the sun was setting over the homestead. The crocuses bloomed by the door, purple and gold. Sarah's flowers growing stronger every year. Caleb thought about the man he'd been 18 months ago, bitter, broken, ready to give up on everything except the work and the child he couldn't abandon. He thought about the woman who'd arrived on Christmas Eve dressed in rags, carrying nothing but a carpet bag and her integrity. The woman who'd stood up to gossips, nursed his daughter, loved him back to life. He thought about all the ways he'd tried to push her away, all the walls he'd built, all the fears he'd let control him. None of it had mattered. She'd stayed anyway. She'd loved him anyway. And now, here they were. "Papa." "Yeah, little bird." "I'm glad she came. Miss Clara, I mean Mama. I'm glad she came on Christmas." "Me too, Rosie. Me too." "Do you think if you hadn't answered that advertisement, do you think she would have come anyway? Like fate or something?" Caleb considered the question. Fate, destiny, the idea that some things were meant to be. He'd never believed in that stuff. Always figured you made your own luck for better or worse. But looking at his family, at the life he'd never expected, the love he'd never deserved, he wasn't so sure anymore. "I think," he said slowly, "that sometimes the world gives you what you need, whether you're ready for it or not. And the trick is recognizing it when it comes." "Is that what happened? You recognized Mama?" "Eventually. Took me a while. Your Mama was patient." Clara laughed from the bed. "Patient is one word for it. Stubborn's another." "Look who's talking." Rosie giggled. Tommy stirred in Caleb's arms, making a small sound of protest. "I think he's hungry, Mama." "I think you're right." Clara held out her arms, and Caleb transferred the baby carefully. "Come here, little man. Let's get you fed." Caleb stepped back, watching. His wife nursing their son. His daughter kneeling beside the bed, watching with fascination. His family. "I'm going to start supper," he said. "You rest." "Caleb." He turned at the door. "Thank you." "For what?" "For opening the door. That first night. You could have turned me away. Could have sent me back to the stage and been done with it. But you opened the door." He remembered. The snow falling. The woman in rags on his porch. the choice that had seemed impossible. Rosie didn't give me much say in the matter. But you let me stay. That night and every night after. You let me in. Best decision I ever made. Clara smiled, tired and beautiful, and his. Go make supper. We'll be here when you get back. I know. He went to the kitchen and started cooking. Simple food. The kind that filled bellies and warmed hearts. Through the window he could see the last light fading from the sky. The stars were coming out one by one. In the bedroom he heard Clara singing softly to Thomas. The same lullaby she'd sung to Rosie all those months ago, the night of the fever. A song about a river, and a journey about finding home in unexpected places. Caleb listened and felt the truth of it settle into his bones. Home wasn't a place. It wasn't four walls and a roof and a fence around the property. Home was this. These people. This love. This ordinary, extraordinary life they'd built together from nothing. He'd spent 3 years thinking home had died with Sarah. Thinking he'd never feel whole again. He'd been wrong. The coldest winter breaks when someone's brave enough to open the door. Clara had knocked. He'd opened. And everything after that was grace. Caleb Thornton finished making supper, called his family to the table, and sat down with his wife, his daughter, and his newborn son. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright above the Montana Territory. Inside, the cabin glowed with warmth and light and love. A family forged from grief and hope, choosing each other every single day. The end wasn't an end at all. It was a beginning, and the beginning was enough. The beginning was everything. The beginning was the only thing that ever really mattered. They had found each other. They were home.